G'day guys, welcome back to Play on Footy on YouTube. My name is Bailey. Today we're going to be rounding up round 17. What a round of football. There was 9 AFL games. I got 5 tips out of 9 right. The tips I got wrong were the games that included North and Suns. So I tipped Suns to win. North won that one. What a win by North, by the way. They've played probably, I want to say, 6 weeks of competitive football. So good on North. Port Adelaide and the Bullies, I tipped the Bullies, so I got that one wrong. And the next game was Giants versus Blues. I actually tipped the Blues, so Giants won that game, of course. And the next game, the last game that I got wrong was St Kilda versus Swannies. I tipped the Swans, and they got narrowly beaten by St Kilda. So let's start from the first game, Collingwood versus Essendon. Wow, what a game from Merritt. Merritt absolutely... He did fantastically well. So did Caldwell, Jai Caldwell. Jai Caldwell was like one of the biggest improvers of 2024, in my opinion. Right next to Jake Waterman, Tracy from the Dockers. I think he's been a massive improvement. And Briggsy, the big ruckman from Giants, I think he's had a massive year as well. But yeah, all in all, I think he played really well, Merritt. For Collingwood, I can't really say the same for Nick Dacos. I think he had a really off game, but each their own. I think every player at some stage of their career has a bit of an off day. But the Collingwood group actually went to Wet and Wild before this game. So they went off to Wet and Wild as like a bonding session before this game. And I think probably raised a couple of eyebrows, but I think if it gets them to win games, it's worth it. But clearly this game they did not win. And this is Essendon's first top 8 win against a side in the top 8. So I think this speaks volumes of where Essendon are at, especially in 2024. Whether or not they win the flag this year is yet to be seen. But they're definitely playing finals, in my opinion. I don't think they can really just bottom out straight away. I think they've built enough, I guess, whether or not the draw was easy or not for them, which is, arguably they have been versing a lot of bottom 8 sides. So I think from here, Essendon are definitely playing finals. Collingwood, though, are they going to be top 4 contenders? I don't think so. I think they've got a good enough list for this year. Next year, I think there's going to be a lot of players that are coming out of contract. I'm thinking Mason Cox. I'm thinking Scotty Pendlebury to an extent. Does he go and play for North Melbourne and does like some developmental role down there? Who knows? Still side bottom as well. He's another one. Yeah, and then Brody Myercheck obviously got that really nasty knee to the ribs. And had an arm. I don't know if it was fractured or anything like that, but that looked pretty serious. But yeah, overall, Darcy Moore, he had an okay game, but there's been a lot of scrutiny on him and his back pressure. But yeah, all in all, I think it was a pretty nice game to watch from an Essendon perspective. If you're a Collingwood supporter, it would have been very frustrating. Next game is North versus Suns. So yeah, this game didn't really pan out what people really thought. After the game, the Suns coach Damon Hardwick was basically saying, look, we need to effing grow up, which partly is true. I mean, they have not won away from home so many times. They win against some really good sides at home, but when it comes to away games, they just cannot get it done. And the Marvel curse continues for Dimmer. Standouts were obviously Sheasel for North, and for the Suns, I think with the exclusion of Witts, I think Moyle did really well in the ruck, so I think that was a positive from Suns' perspective. And the next game, Port versus Bullies. I mean, this was a blowout in terms of it was a blowout, as in it was very windy at the ground from many reports. But yeah, Port were just way too strong. The Rosie, Butters, Jason Francis, those guns, they remind me of the Judd Cousins Kerr era. No, not even kidding. And this is from a West Coast Eagles. I'm mainly a West Coast Eagles supporter. I look at their midfield, and when they're firing, it is just so good to see. But then when they're not firing, it doesn't work, it doesn't click, of course. But when it was firing on the weekend, like it was in this game, so good to watch. And the Bullies just had no answers. Next game was Cats versus Hawks. This was the first game since 2006 that the Hawks played at GMHBA against the Cats, which again, you go, what how does that happen? But anyway, they played there. They got smashed and smacked around by the Cats, which was good to see. No, I shouldn't say that. No, look, both sides have been very successful for a long time. I just find it interesting that both these teams haven't versed each other at GMHBA before since 2006. That's a long time. I think standout players for the Hawks were Dylan Moore. I think he did really well. Will Day as well. And then for the Cats, I'm going to go with Tom Stewart. I mean, he's got a role change at the moment. He's playing a lot more in the midfield and off half back, which, I mean, he is a backman by nature, but he even at times went forward, had a couple of set shots. I think he'd be one for AFL Fantasy to definitely pick up. Of course, Whitfield's another great defender if you're looking at defenders in AFL Fantasy. But overall, I think the Cats can be very proud of themselves. They've got Humphreys and they've got Sean Manor, who've been great picks for them so far and been really good contributors across the board. And Dempsey, of course, had a pretty all right game as well. Next game was Dockers versus Tigers. The Tigers had at least, a couple of quarters they won in this game, which it wasn't a massive blowout. It wasn't like Eagles and Demons, but yeah, the Dockers, they've got a lot of great players. They've got Tracy, who I said earlier has been the biggest improvement of the season thus far. Brayshaw stood up in the absence of Pearce as captain. Thought he did a really good job, and Nat Fyfe just does what he has to do. Like, he's just a player that plays the role, does what he needs to do. He's a good leader on and off the field. And they're sitting top. They're third on the ladder. So good on the Dockers. As for the Tigers, Nank Tank, he 150. I think he polled in AFL Fantasy. He's a great ruckman. He just week in week out just does what he needs to do. And it's great to see. Tim Taranto, of course, is another great Tiger player who did what he could considering the circumstances against Dockers, who are really informed. Next game was Melbourne versus Eagles. This game was not what I think a lot of people were expecting. I mean, we know what Eagles are capable of. We've seen it against the Melbourne Demons at Optus Stadium. And then there were 7 goals to 1 in the first quarter, and it was just like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And the body language was just so putrid. Jermaine Jones standing on the mark and just not even putting his hands up. Bailey Williams just not defending. Witherden not even tackling or chasing. Jack Darling just getting worked under the ball. Even Oscar Allen at some stages of the game. Tholstrup just kicked 2 goals, and then Jacob Van Rooyen kicked 2 goals, and then Pickett got in the action. It was just an absolute goal fest, and Eagles just looked so sluggish and lethargic and just got outworked for the whole day, basically. And now, breaking news, Adam Simpson has departed the West Coast Eagles after 11 years. 2018 Premiership coach. He's only won 8 of the last 57 games, and I think that was part of the reason. Trevor Nisbet's already obviously gone as the CEO end of last year. Don Pyke's new CEO, whether it was the board or Don Pyke's decision or both, to just say, look, Adam, got to go. They say depart. He could have been sacked, but I don't want to obviously say he's been sacked if he hasn't been sacked. There was a press conference after the game, and he's basically accepting his football mortality and basically accepts whatever happens. He just knew that it was coming. And after all those results, after so many years, it's just, it's not getting them where they want to be. And Melbourne's not in a great space right now. I mean, Gawn's now out for 2 or 3 weeks. Or I think it's 3 weeks with a fractured fibula. So they're not going to be contending for finals. So for Eagles to get blown out by Melbourne, they're not really in a great space either. So it's not like they're in a top 4 team. Anyway, St Kilda versus Swans. This was a great surprise. I mean, St Kilda really, I guess they were just playing for pride. Under Ross Lyon, you're probably thinking, gee, not many people gave much of a chance, but because it was a Marvel, Swans don't really, I'm not going to say they're cursed by Marvel, but they don't generally play well at Marvel. I don't know why, but anyway, McDonald missed a set shot. A couple of minutes, I think it was a minute to go, just like spitting image of the Dockers game where he was just on the edge of 50 and just couldn't convert. But again, the Swans shouldn't have let it get to that point. Great players, as I mentioned, Mateus Filippo for St Kilda, Sinclair, even Steele and Marshall. I mean, they're just great players for Saints. Then for Swans, Heaney, he got a late hit on Webster, so that's a bit of one to look at. Hopefully it doesn't obviously hurt his Brownlow chances, but who knows. Another one for the Swans was Grundy. I thought Grundy did all right with Marshall. I mean, they're top tier ruckman, those two. Goulden had a bit of a quiet game. Chad Warner did great. I think he kicked 2 goals, and he's just got that burst of energy and speed, which is just so good to see. But yeah, overall, St Kilda won. They deserved it. better team on the day, and Swans just left it too late. Next game, and the last game of the round, was Lions versus Crows. This one was at the Gabba. And yeah, Isaac Rankin, he also got a charge as well for a late bump on Starcevic that basically knocked him out. So he's pretty much going to miss next week unless he gets overruled, but I doubt it will be. Lockie Neal played a great game. Dunkley played a great game for the Lions. And then for the Crows, yeah, Isaac Rankin did play a good game. But apart from that, I think Mitch Hinge got injured at one point down the back line. He's been pretty pivotal for that back line. But yeah, look, I think it was an honourable loss. The Crows didn't get blown out of the water. It was just a couple of points. I think it was like 10 or 12 point loss. Considering the Lions are in form and the Gabba, I would take that any day of the week coming from an Eagles supporter. But what do you guys reckon? What was your favourite game? What was the game that surprised you? And what are your tips for next round? I'll be doing the round 18 predictions video soon. Probably coming out on Thursday. I like to sort of see who's in, who's out, sort of thing. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. If you haven't liked the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.